Good evening. I'd like to call the City of Menasha Common Council Budget Review Session to order. Please rise and join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. If we could have the roll, please.
Alderman Tom Grady. Here. Alderman Ted Grady. Here. Alderman Rapella. Here. Alderman Nichols. Here. Alderman Eisenach. Here. Alderman Sevenik. Here. Alderman Hammond. Here. Alderman Schmidt. Here. All are present.
First item on the agenda is the public comments on anything on the agenda, and there's no one in the public gallery this evening, so we'll move on to the three items for the budgets. The community development budget is first. Director Schrader, would you like to take it away?
I would love nothing more, Mayor. All right, so basically tonight I do have a PowerPoint to kind of go through where the community development budget is at. We touch a lot of different things, as you can kind of see from the agenda, but just kind of a recap. So again, we are a department of 5 internal staff, and then we contract out for commercial building inspections. So Farrah Yang, our principal planner, Christy Heim, our community development coordinator, Allison Humsky is our building inspector, housing specialist, Lori Fulser is our new code enforcement specialist, who just started about a month ago and is doing awesome, and Alvar Kyland is the contract for commercial building inspections. So kind of just to skim through some major accomplishments for this past year. Again, we continue to implement the Strong Neighborhoods Menasha program, really constantly looking at ways to make it easier both on staff as well as our applicants to apply for those. We are going through some potential changes currently and discussions with the Housing Authority to bring back, again, just to continue to make sure that every dollar is making a difference in that fashion. Again, that program has been great and one of many in the community. So boundary agreement between the City of Menasha and the Village of Fox Crossing twice. We were able to accomplish that and hopefully establish a ground rule for kind of moving forward in those discussions with that as well when future projects come along. Closure of TIF 9 this past spring. We have 3 subdivisions under construction right now: Woodcrest Heights, Woodland Lakes Cottages, and Lake Park Heights, the first edition. So that's a total of 129 new single-family lots. Those are actively being marketed as well as basically being constructed on. Development projects, the Marin Construction, Bonta Lofts, Harbor Lofts, Lakeshore Ridge condos, the Lakeshore Ridge Apartments, Phase 2 has commenced. Caribou Coffee just opened last week. Tri-City Auto is currently under construction, and Covantage Credit Union is looking really starting to take shape and should be open by the end of the year. Sale of the remaining Lake Park Villa lots. Again, these were 112 residential lots within a really tight condominium development. We were very lacking in sales for a long period of time there. So we did work through some development to get those sold and actively being constructed on both in specs and contract homes. We were awarded the EPA Brownfield Site Assessment Grant for $500,000 this past year. So we will be implementing that. That's already started through this year as well as the next 3 years, I believe the contract's for a total of $500,000. The Neighborhood Investment Fund Grant was also awarded for the Water Street. So that's really going to be a group effort between Parks, Community Development, as well as Public Works to implement that project as it kind of blends in overall with many of us. Hopefully, construction would start by the end of next year and then into 2024. We also had the first year of bird scooters within Menasha. I'm sure this winter we'll be having discussions whether or not we would like to continue that relationship with bird scooters. I did hear the City of Appleton just recently had a meeting about how do they expand it to make sure that connectivity and the regional connectivity between municipalities is there, so you're not riding a scooter to the end of the corporate limits, parking it, and then having to walk, a couple blocks and hop on the next one. So as we move into 2020, yeah.
Thank you. that EPA brownfield, what project are we talking about there?
So currently, what we are doing, again, a lot of this is site assessment. So phase ones, phase twos, geotechnical reports, kind of just additional analysis to do on the front end to assist in development projects that might come along. So having that information allows staff as well as a developer a lot more comfort in that ability to say, okay, I am willing to take this project on. Currently, the projects that are out there that we are working on, there's a phase one being done on the Whiting paper mill site. There is some asbestos and lead work being done on the Becker Electric building for upcoming hopeful future development on the rise. Geotechnical and I think a phase two on the Gilbert paper mill site to again assist in that additional development as well as some testing of the Lost Canal.
Okay. The reason I brought it up is that we just spent $180,000 for the Bryn cleanup. We shared in the cost, and that check was cut a couple weeks ago. So
And and this is a great example of a site that we can go out and do a phase one before we would actually execute that and do a phase two on using these dollars. And what that does again is it takes the question out on the front end before the project starts, whether versus learning about it during the project and having to scramble and find ways to keep that development going. So,
but as you know, we did do those phases, and we still ended up finding an area that had to be cleaned in the corner. So, okay. But I'm happy to hear that. I'm surprised that we are awarded a grant before we have a specific need, unless that specific need was part of the grant, which I wasn't aware of.
it is a community-wide grant to spur development. So
Okay.
each project does require basically eligibility determinations and a full report as to why we're going out to actually look at using the funds for that, and then that has to get approved by our project manager within the EPA.
Okay.
So it is very scrutinized about how we spend the dollars. It's not that we can just go out and spend these, but at the same token, again, it's to lay that groundwork for that future development.
And what was the dollar amount?
$500,000.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you, Mayor. Sam, is this the time where you're going to give us like updates on some of the other projects, or is this an appropriate time for you going to do that?
I can answer any question at any point tonight, whatever.
Wow, you are talented. Thank you. Three things, but first I want to say thank you to Craig Korth. We got a nice email from him today. I wish more people would do those updates and what they're doing with their land and things. So I did reach out to Craig and thank him for his exemplary email. Shopko, what's the status of the Shopko Plaza as far as, I see some construction going on there. I just wondered if you would share, because some of us don't get down to that end of the city.
Yeah, certainly. So the Shopko building itself was bought by an out-of-state real estate investor. He is just marketing that for lease. But I think specifically what you're referring to is the actual Shopko Plaza. Historically has been referred to it. I know the current owner refers to it as the Menasha Plaza, you'll hear sometimes. But basically, a couple years ago, they had brought forward a facade update plan for that entire project. That is what the project is. It is not a demolition. They are just basically decided to implement that project and put that face on that they had previously been approved to do. From my understanding, there is no active tenants or new leases signed that weren't previously there or anything.
So he's just fixing up empty buildings.
Correct.
Okay. And then the Bryn, how is that going as we see the multi-towers there?
Yeah, so from what I gather, again, this is not a city project, but from the information that I gather, they do have a crane on site. It was anticipated, I think that, I believe the walls are actually prefabricated, so they'll come kind of prefabricated on a truck and then actually replaced. Somewhat of a Lego build is my understanding. And it was supposed to be here like 2 weeks ago, and I believe it's supposed to be here by the end of the week because they had a delay from the plant to actually deliver that. But again, there is a crane on site for that project. So it's expensive to keep a crane on site, and I do believe and trust the source that I have that they are, working towards that and having that material come.
Fantastic. Thank you very much for your answers.
Perfect. All right. Moving on, 2023. Kind of just quickly skim through this. Again, we are looking at continuing that Strong Neighborhoods Menasha program I mentioned, really starting to look into modifications as we've always done at this time of how do we make sure every dollar is the best we can. We have dollars placed in the budget this year for a housing analysis as well as a comprehensive plan. As you can see, a couple additional bullet points down. We did not move forward with that because of kind of all the changes that are happening as well as just staff time. But basically with these new units coming on, having that housing analysis done kind of on the back end of that is really where we'll add to some flexibility there. Again, skipping down to the comprehensive plan, we did have $20,000 in the budget for this year to update a couple of chapters. What we are proposing is to not spend those monies obviously for the end of this year, but actually carry those forward so we have $40,000. So hopefully we can update the remaining portion of the comprehensive plan next year. Continuing to work with the City of Appleton with the acquisition of the Appleton Water Plant, that connectivity that for both vehicles, traffic, trail connection, and then residential development. There has been some recent discussions with them and kind of taken a step backwards. So we are working through that with them, and hopefully, again, we can have something to share with you guys. Continuing to work with our regional partners to clean up the borders, again, as development and that stuff happens. Continuing to market the sale of available commercial properties. So again, there's certainly the sites out at Province Terrace that are owned by the RDA, the Lake Park Square properties, and we're constantly having conversations with developers, potential tenants, or landowners and real estate agents about what could go there. Work towards the development of the Whiting Corridor. Again, I had mentioned earlier that a phase 1 is currently being looked at, potentially moving that to a phase 2 to actually look at the testing of it. And then it's really going to kind of get into the timing of aligning the stars, if you will, for both redevelopment opportunity and the acquisition and potentially a TIF creation all along that corridor to make sure it all kind of happens at one point, at one time, because I think that's going to be what we need to do. The one thing I don't want to do from a staffing standpoint and administration, I think the council would agree with this, certainly correct me if I'm wrong, is looking at that Gilbert paper site where a TIF was created. We tore it down and it sat vacant for many, many years. So trying to align that a little bit tighter to make sure we have the best opportunity, and once we start spending money to really have that output. Again, I just mentioned the Bonta Gilbert property, so still in a lot of conversations there, a lot of things moving together. The Water Street corridor I had already mentioned. I have Whiting site on there twice. It's really important. Continue business retention and expansion visits. So a part of my job is actually to get into individual businesses, oftentimes heavy employers or major companies, and at least have a conversation with them on an annual basis, or at least have an understanding of where they're at with employment, if they're looking at expansion, or if they're pulling back. So if there's anything we can do from a city, we make sure we do those. Strategize and execute the redevelopment of the Shopko area. TIF 14, as we mentioned. TIF 14 is one that is, again, now that this Shopko Plaza area is kind of moving forward in that redevelopment, we were kind of waiting to see kind of what happened or transpired in the conversations over there. I believe our best opportunity at this point would be to just close that in this coming year, and just kind of, if a new project comes, just work through those details on that case-by-case basis. Continue to advance the redevelopment of the downtown Menasha site. Again, we've had Discovery Point apartments open up at the end of, middle of October. Harbor Lofts here, 130 Main Street is looking at opening up, I believe by the end of February. We have the Bryn development that hopefully, again, there'll be lots of workers and construction happening within the couple weeks here. And then those next opportunities that we have, certainly there's still a lot of blighted and vacant buildings that need a lot of attention, and we do recognize that, and there's a lot of conversations that happen on the back end with that. And then lastly, just to continue to update the municipal ordinances as needed.
Thank you, Mayor. Just to clarify, am I understanding correctly that the housing analysis will be done separately from the comprehensive plan?
That is the intention, yes, to still do a full housing analysis, and then it can be adopted as part of the comprehensive plan. I believe we had called that out as a TIF 13 expenditure. And there's just so much changing in that housing market that we want to make sure it's done right and done timely.
And if it's a TIF 13 expenditure, does that come with limitations to how far the study zone would be?
So we had looked at that and believe that a housing study needs to look at the market. And we believe that the market is the entire city of Menasha from a rental and housing standpoint, as well as possibly beyond our borders. So that's why we had called that out specifically in the TIF 13 project plan, that it would be more of this citywide housing analysis, but even though it's paid out of TIF 13, we just know there's a lot of housing potential downtown, and want to make sure we get that right.
Okay, is that a contract? I'm assuming you'll send out an RFP.
Correct. There would be an RFP on that.
Okay, and then is that something that comes to the Common Council for approval, not the RFP, but the actual contract, or not?
I would assume the proposal, the acceptance of a proposal would come to council, similar to what we've done in the past with that.
All right, thank you.
All right. So again, overview, it's all on the agenda. Basically, kind of everything we're going to touch on today regarding some fun numbers. And we'll just kind of dive into it. So code enforcement, again, how I have this worked out is each page has a page number for where you guys can find it in your book or the PDF. And I really did not go through all the details within that, but I have highlighted major items or changes. If there's any item that you guys need specifically called out or have questions on beyond that, feel free, happy to answer any questions. So code enforcement starting on page 270. Again, we hired our new code enforcement specialist, Lori Fulser. Again, she is doing excellent. And if I can jump down to the last line of registration, one of the things that was a change, we did add $1,500 in for a registration. This is an actual program, property management. I think it's at the end of February next year. It's a course down in Madison. I think it's a week-long course that we would love to send to her. Again, give her the resources to make sure she has that education on the front end to continue for that forward. And then again, the major item there, the ticket item is the wages of the $47,000. Building inspections, page 267. So again, commercial building inspections, we continue to look for that commercial plumbing inspector. Trying to reach out to that. We have done some continued education and training for Building Inspector Humsky. And one of the things that we recently approved, we did not sign that contract yet, is the outsourcing of the CDBG program, which hopefully will allow Allison Humsky a little bit extra time to potentially use some of that commercial training and certificate for actual code enforcement side of things or backup in that sense. So again, the big thing is the salary of the housing specialist. And then the other item is the management. Again, one of the things I always want to point out is that $55,000 that is called out in the budget is reflective of permit revenues. So that's 85% of revenues and permit fees that are collected. So as revenues increase, that number is going to increase. As revenues decrease, that number is going to decrease. So basically the 55,000, we look at kind of that average of kind of over several years and trying to just put that. But that's why sometimes you'll see that year end will be much higher or much lower on that line item. Valley Transit. Valley Transit did go up roughly 40,000 or 19% higher than the previous year, page 274. But one of the things I do want to call out is that there is a very large credits that are provided through the federal, state, and local credits on that. And so what we really look at is the net cost of this service. And so the net cost this coming year is estimated at $45,194. That is just $17 higher than last year. So even though there was a $40,000 increase, the actual net dollar increase is only $17, meaning those estimated credits are actually going up in this next year. Again, dial ride, no change there with 11,200. Community development, page 261. So again, the major items, wages and salary for the community development coordinator, the director, and the planner. One thing I will call out is that 5% of the coordinator's position was placed in stormwater this year, just kind of looking at that workload. And then the other thing is the increase of general fund dollars percentage for both the director and the planner position. So when I first kind of came on board here, these numbers were down in that like 50%, and it really kind of bled over a lot of different accounts and much higher. So we've just kind of been upticking that, and we kind of feel very comfortable at this 70%, and then diluting those other percentages across TIF accounts or stormwater or other items that we might be involved in.
Thank you, Mayor. If possible, and I know it's possible, but could we have a list of the employee and then each of the areas that their salaries are coming out of? So for instance, Sam's comes out of multiple different budgets. The city attorney's comes out of different budgets. So you know what I'm talking about, right?
Are you looking for, based upon general fund, TIF, and stormwater and sewer?
Yep.
Or
Wherever it comes out of, their salaries.
because you're not looking for, this person is 20% snow plowing, 20% streets, 20%, if they're all 100
Wherever
general
their
funds?
salary's coming from what revenue account it's coming from, I want to see it. Because I don't believe most of us realize, right now, if you look at that, it makes it look like Sam makes $59,000. He doesn't. He gets quite a bit more. And they come from multiple different budgets, like stormwater, like, name some of the other ones.
Ours would be in TIFs.
And from the TIFs, I forgot about the TIFs. So I think we should have that,
I don't mind doing it. It's, when we look at public works people though, we have people that are probably in 12 different accounts.
And let's see them.
But they're all general fund accounts? Do you want like general fund
And
X?
if it comes from the general
stormwater?
fund and not a specific account,
Okay.
then it should be from the general fund.
Okay, so you just want them divided up by general fund and then other revenue funds?
Yes,
Okay, that's a little different than, that's why I was asking a question.
okay. Because I did get some questions from aldermen, and I did try to explain that that's not the salary, that it comes from other accounts, so.
All right. So continuing on, again, the engineering dollar, the 20,000, I've kind of explained that we are hoping to carry forward the 20,000 that's in 2022 into 23 to do that remainder portion of those chapters in 2023. Marketing dollars, this was reduced already this year, trying to make the budget work. But basically, we did reduce that to $12,500. 1,000 of that is kind of always set aside for historic preservation. And then I will say this one is greatly offset by the Winnebago County IDB dollar per capita development grant, which is specific towards marketing. So that is something that I need to go annually and pull together a report and a presentation and go get that grant on an annual basis. Computer replacement again of $1,200. And then the last item is the $2,000 registration. This has been looked at as kind of that continuing education with Leadership Fox Cities. Most recently, our principal planner has expressed interest in AICP, which is American Institute of Certified Planners. So again, having that tag along with that position is basically great training opportunities and basically an elite aspect of a planner. And then myself has been looking at the IEDC, which is the International Economic Development Council, and having that certificate. So that's kind of where that is place marked in there. Urban development, again, 264. This is very minor as part of that community development, but basically it's electric or water, stormwater fees for miscellaneous properties that we own, such as the vacant lot on Chute Street. So facade improvement, page 91. This is a special revenue fund. So this is, again, kind of a standalone fund. Each year we budget about $10,000 and have grants up to $2,500. The Landmarks Committee does review those, and we do kind of present this to individuals. I believe it was this summer or this past spring. We did put out a large flyer to all of the downtown businesses and property owners down there, kind of sharing them with some of the things that are going on, as well as this program. Interest has been a little low, but I think that's due to just the dollar amount and the match of what that gets you. So the existing fund balance is just under $22,000. One of the things we'll be looking at in the future is, again, that TIF 13 did allow for some additional housing and facade renovation work. So that's not in this budget, but we would look to potentially in the future drop monies from TIF 13 into a capitalization program or fund to kind of regenerate this and maybe increase that dollar for dollar match on some of these facade renovations. Again, just kind of for a reference, a historic facade renovation, if they're going to tuck point some of the brick, basically do the stitching of the mortaring on that facade, that could be anywhere from $60,000 to $80,000, and it really does, it preserves the building. These buildings are very old, and I think that's what Menasha wants, and but it has a very little return on the value of the property and their return on their investment. They usually can't lease the property for more and stuff like that. So just kind of, again, thought process moving forward in the future, we'll be kind of taking a look at that. Strong Neighborhoods Program, again, page 94 and 95. Again, another special revenue fund. The current balance of this fund is, and these numbers I'm using too are a few weeks old, just for clarification. Just over $900,000 left in that program. Each year we budget about $300,000 in funds for the actual applications of the main major renovations or the curb appeals dollars. And then we also have noted in there as a placeholder that $350,000 for the Appleton water plant acquisition. These numbers have been the same consistent the last couple of years. And again, if we don't use them all, the funds stay there and they just kind of roll over from year to year. And I believe the first year we had the program, we actually hit that $300,000 and had to take certain projects, or actually had to consider certain projects versus other projects. We have not had that since then. Marketing the program, again, $1,500. Currently, the major thing that we've done is kind of creating brochures and flyers. We are in discussions about actually creating a different flyer to mailed directly to certain areas, certain properties, to really try to get that right into the hand of that property owner or that property to make sure they're aware of the program. So that's another thing that we'll be looking at doing in this coming year. The CDBG Revolving Loan Program, page 92, again, another special revenue fund. This year, we did approve a contract to outsource this. Like I had mentioned earlier, this has not been executed yet. More just on a internal staff administration thing, nothing alarming of that aspect. So again, this is very similar to others where we have budgeted $55,000 that can come in higher or lower. But again, it is an existing program. There's roughly $798,000 in that fund balance, but then within loans out into the public is well over $1 million. And what happens is if they sell the house or they transfer the house, those monies go back into the account. If they foreclose on it or something like that, we may lose a portion, but those actively get managed by our building inspector, housing specialist, Humsky. TIF 4, one of the things, I guess, I'm not sure if Jen wanted to mention later, but TIF 4, sorry, I clicked one on my laptop, not up here. TIF 4 was not noted in the budget book, and I think it was just done in error. There's really no changes other than the administrative costs that we've seen from year to year. This will be corrected prior to the final budget. But again, really there's no costs, no projects, no nothing. It's just kind of that admin dollars that we've seen year to year. TIF 7, again, no major changes, no real dollars noted in there. So again, we kind of just continue to move on quickly through that one. And this page 53. TIF number 8. Again, I think the big ticket that we had put in there was this past year, so 2022, $100,000 to support the Racine Street Bridge amenities. I believe that will be paid out by the end of the year. Even with that, we are still looking at a likely early closure of that. One of the things I want to lead into is that typically we would have an October joint review board meeting for the counties and the school districts and provide an annual report. We did not do that yet. We are looking to schedule that in December. So once that report is done, you guys will get a copy of that as well, placed in your council packets, and any major changes or alarms we can certainly call out at that point and discuss the future projections of those in more detail at that point. TIF 9, again, we had an early closure on this, so this would be back on the tax roll in 2023. TIF number 10, page 62. Again, the major item within this district is that Bertram Dental Development Incentive. So again, the other incentive performance payment that we had tied to this district was the Bryn development. And when we created the TIF 13, it actually overlapped and we swapped the payment from TIF 10 to TIF 13. And what that allow us to do is still probably have an early closure on TIF 10 versus having this district open until 2033.
Thank you, Mayor. Sam, I just want to congratulate you. That Bertram Dental Development is probably one of the better developments the city's had in quite a long time. So thank you. Kudos to you.
Thank you.
Gold star. Good job.
Perfect.
Thank you. There is, I'm looking at TIF 10 pages, and these do look significantly different than what we used to have in our prior budget format. So either now or during the TIF segment item part of our agenda, would either you or Director Sassman be willing to go over this format?
And are you looking at
I'm on page 64 and 65 right now.
64 and 65?
There are some notes in the notes column But then there's also reference to the things Alderman Sevenick was talking about for wages, salaries, and benefits.
Yeah, and so I guess I can touch on that right now. So basically what we're seeing as far as the expenditures, the wages and salaries, we did take those funds out of TIF 10, as well as, the benefits that go along with that, the marketing dollars. We actually took that stuff out of TIF 10 this year and put it towards TIF 13. Since TIF 13 is kind of that overlapping district of the downtown and really where a lot of staff time goes to. So that's why you see kind of those negative 100% is just taking our percentages that we previously had from wages and benefits out of that district and into TIF 13.
I don't remember doing that.
And then what is the total conservation and development line? There's a negative 46.9% there on page 65.
Yep, so basically, if you look at, I believe the percentage was 5 or 10% of the director and the planner's position. So we had taken that out. So I think let's see here, that first column, the 22 amended budget, shows the number of $36,424. And then the 2023 budget, so that third one, 2 over, shows and I lost it. Shows a number of 19,328. That's why you're seeing the negative percentage of 46.9%.
So that's
You're saying
it's not conservation and development as I would think of it then. It's the total of wages and salaries that used to be in TID 10 that is now somewhere else.
Yeah, so community development falls under this overarching heading, if you will, of conservation and development. So anything really related to community development falls under this total conservation and development line item. But that's why you're seeing that deduction this year in TIF 10 is because let's say 5% of my salary and 5% of the planner's salary that was in there in 22, we took that out of TIF 10. And again, what we're looking at is most of our work is now done in TIF 13, and we don't want to continue to put costs in a TIF that we're looking at potentially an early closure. So the sooner we can close that and have less dollars being spent out of that district, the better, so that can get paid off sooner and get closed sooner.
Yes, okay, so total conservation and development on this page has to do with community development department expenses that were budgeted for TID 10 for 22 and prior that are no longer budgeted out of TID 10 going forward.
Correct.
Got it, thank you. So as far as anything else, there's no projects scheduled for TID 10 this year or anything?
Nope. So again, the only really thing that's in there is that performance payment under the awards and claims line on page 65. And again, those numbers fluctuate annually because it's calculated on a percentage of the actual tax revenues that are coming in. So again, assessed values go up or tax rates go down, that performance payment actually goes down and follows that. So that's why you see some fluctuation from year to year on that. The only other item again was if you kind of move up a little bit, the $2,000 for engineering. Again, that's kind of more of a placeholder should we need to continue to move something along out there. And then the marketing dollars, 487.0304, 562.2110 of $6,000. That was the Fox Cities Regional Partnership. Again, those dollars similar to the employee wages and salaries and benefits. We took that and put it in TIF 13 for the coming year.
Okay, so if I back up one more page, then to page 63, near the top of the graph where it says tax increment city purposes, and fiscal year 2023 budgeted is 76,141. Is that revenue to the TIF, or is that things being paid out?
So that is under, yes, that whole
Oh, it is
graph there
revenue.
is under the revenue
Got it.
aspect.
Thank you.
So I believe that would be, basically, you look at your TIFs, your base value.
Yes.
So that's the new taxes above that line that's going into this TIF versus going on to the general fund.
All right, so page 63 is the revenue page, and 64 and 65 are the expenditures.
Correct.
All right, thank you for walking me through that.
Gladly. All right, any other questions? All right, moving on. TIF 11. So again, this is the TIF that encompasses the Bonta and the Gilbert redevelopment. Again, the major items here, the PJC Group performance payment, that was paid in full in 2022, so that will kind of fall off, as well as they will be on the hook for paying their taxes in future years. And then the construction of Oak Street, the extension. This was dollars that were budgeted for this construction in 2022. We've run into, again, kind of working through the design of Oak Street, and also trying to make sure we don't impede on the future Lost Canal project or the trail connection or future development. So we're really just working through those details, and it's taking a little bit longer to get to a final design, so we can actually go out and construct that. And then the other part of that is that we're actually working with the DNR, who has some concern of this peninsula being an actual dam structure and how that works through that aspect of that. So those are kind of something new that's popped up recently that we're working through those details. And again, we would still see this extension happening in '23. TIF 12. So again, calling out staff salaries. Yep. Yep, sorry, I was on TIF 11. Yep. Any questions?
Under the capital project, oops, sorry, Mayor, I forgot about we're on TV. That Oak Street extension, so is that basically down 13% because we figured the cost is going to be less, or what?
So we were recipients of a $250,000 Wisconsin Economic Development Corporation grant this year for that, specifically for that project. So I think there was some cost reduction there, as well as I believe some of the funds that we were looking at originally with the Oak Street extension tied in with the Lost Canal project. So we kind of refined those numbers to the 1.3 million. I'm sure that's alarming when you see an infrastructure project being reduced in this market, so.
Right. Also too, as far as our grant application for the Lawson Canal project, are we resubmitting it for next year, or what? Are there funds available for that next year? I think we're looking pretty good for that.
Yeah, so that's one of the more recent things that popped out. So I'm not sure if Director Sackett had shared that, but we were not recipients of the 2021 or the 2022 DNR stewardship grant. And it kind of, what we were told last year is we just missed the criteria and the bracket. And what we were kind of told this year is that there's concerns of this dam safety aspect of that. So that's given us
safety. What's an AM safety?
dam, like the actual dam
I thought you
safety.
said AM.
Yeah.
Did I hear that wrong? I guess so. Okay. I'm not used to such language.
We are recording, so I'm going to keep it.
Yes, I know.
But yeah, so basically, we look at the Menasha Dam within the Fox River, and then there's the private dam that was underneath the Gilbert paper mill site. And the recent knowledge that the DNR had shared with us is that the entire land mass between the two is also considered a dam structure. So they would like us to do an additional analysis on basically a potential failure of that, and then basically work with them to make sure we can do all the projects and it's not going to be detrimental to the safety of the dam in the city of Menasha. So
So the
working through those.
stewardship grant then is the same as the Lake Street, right? Or
Water Street?
Water Street, sorry.
No, Water Street was the Neighborhood Investment Fund grant.
What was the name of that one?
Neighborhood Investment Fund grant through the ARPA dollars. The DNR Stewardship Grant is an annual grant that they provide for recreational and outdoor projects.
See, I thought they were both the same, so.
No, there's constantly a load of grants that we're always trying to throw our names into.
The reason I bring that up, because we were awarded $2,075,000 or $74,000 for one, and then we didn't get the other.
Oh, yes. So that was the other thing, is that we did apply for the Neighborhood Investment Fund for the Water Street as well as the Lost Canal.
Okay.
So that specific grant, we were awarded one and not the other. The other grant that we were going after for the Lost Canal was the DNR Stewardship Grant, and we were not awarded that one yet either. But we feel that we can make some tweaks, provide some additional design work and analysis work, and hopefully be able to accomplish that next year. And really the goal is, from a city side of things, is all of this fits together. The Lost Canal, the Oak Street, the development, the trail connectivity, the Racine Street Bridge, the Ponta redevelopment. And so we were kind of looking at, staggering those and doing those in steps. And kind of what the DNR may be looking at is, we need to kind of do it all. And we have the capacity to do that. And it's just a matter of, again, aligning those to make sure that works.
Okay. Thank you.
All right, so back to TIF 12. So again, salaries, this does accompany for 10% of the director's salary and 5% of the principal planner's salary, as well as, again, the benefits that accompany that in that percentage. As previously noted, there is $6,000 for the Fox Cities Regional Partnership, that continued regional investment. There's $6,000 in TIF 12 as well as $6,000 in TIF 13, so for a total of $12,000, and that has been our match for several years now for the partnership. Moving forward, so we do have the $432,000 development incentive to the RDA. That was kind of worked through that original agreement and then reanalyzed when we did the TIF amendment, as well as looked at the USDA loan. And then the last item, I believe the numbers in your budget books, roughly $900,000, but $691,000 of that goes to the pond incentive payment, or the Lexington. I think there's a max incentive of like $4 million for that. So basically they went in and did all the infrastructure and development on the front end. And then there's this calculation that we would do on an annual basis for that payment up until we reach that $4 million. The added would be the Lakeshore Ridge incentive payment. So again, the Lakeshore Ridge Apartment Phase 1 was completed last year. So that means the taxes will be paid starting this coming year, because it always lags a year. Again, and then that number will likely go up as the condos as well as the second phase is constructed. TIF 13, so again, looking at continuing that implementation of the Water Street corridor. The 285, I believe, was called out as part of the acceptance of the grant. We had kind of that sources and uses laid out there. $200,000 for the Racine Street Bridge amenities. This accounts for, as well, 10% of the director's salary and 5% of the planner's salary. Here you can find that $25,000 for the housing study that we had previously talked about earlier. $250,000 for future environmental assessments. So basically what that is, we called out, I believe, $400,000 within the TIF project plan for environmental work. 200,000 of that was, or up to 200,000 of that was for the Bryn specifically for their development project. So some of these dollars may be used for the stormwater project that we are looking at or additional projects in that fashion.
Thank you, Mayor. Can we go back to 12?
Sure.
You had landscaping in the, on page 79.
Yeah, certainly. I was actually going to put that in there, and I was like, I left it out. So, page 79, you said?
Yep.
It's 15,000, correct?
Yep.
So what that is, maybe I can actually point on this screen. Oh, no, can't see it on that screen, and I'm not going to point a laser past Attorney Sturve. So basically, between the residential portion and the apartments that were constructed, there's currently basically an empty gravel lot. Then there's a ditch line that kind of bleeds out from the stormwater ponds. And then there's the trail system, some landscaping that's done, and then this large apartment complex. So the $15,000, what that is looking at doing is really kind of softening that edge between this residential apartment complex and this residential development that has taken place and is still taking place. More lots in the Lake Park Villas are being constructed. And we did, when we redid Christella, we actually stubbed in water and sanitary into that gravel lot. So I believe that lot will be, the gravel will be cut out, and we'll probably be looking to sell an actual single-family house on that lot as well.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm on TID 12 as well, on page 77. Under capital projects, near the bottom of the page, almost $242,000 for Community Way to Community Way, which is Christella, to Lake Park Road. I'm remembering this from a few years ago. I thought it was paved and taken care of. Is there additional work being done?
So I can certainly let Public Works answer that tomorrow at their budget hearing.
Okay.
But my assumption is the street that is in there is the temporary binder and the utilities that were done.
Okay.
So this will actually be the 241,000 roughly, would be the curb and gutter, and then the final layer of asphalt to go along with that. I know because of the construction of this phase 2 that is being out there, Corey Gordon, Deputy Director Corey Gordon, did mention doing that late next year to make sure the final street doesn't get ripped up through the construction progress.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Sam, for explaining the